friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using this Avery Elle set called Look for Rainbows. So I've stamped my images out in Lawn Fawn jet black ink on some Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. I'm going to start with my adorable bunny, and I'm going to work on her fur first. I'm using E50, E51, E53, E55, and E57. So I'm going to start with that E57 and lay in some shadows. I'm going to add some to the tops of her ears where that umbrella would be casting a shadow there, and also to the other ear where it would be cast in shadow from the first ear and also from the back of the head. I'll also add some shadow around the sides of her face and a teeny tiny shadow just under that umbrella. I didn't want it to be too prominent there because her face is kind of tipped up into the light and the umbrella is tipped up as well. And then also on the sides of her legs and between them. And then I'm going to take that E55 and begin to blend that out. You may have heard me say before in videos that the E53 and E55 do not like to play nice together sometimes. So the way that I have found to work around that is to just use a little bit of the E53. The E53 seems to be the culprit. So I am only leaving just a sliver of an area on her ears and her tummy for that E53. I left a little bit of a larger area on her face for that shade, but I started in the lighter area and kind of worked my way into the mid-tone, and that seemed to work a lot better for me. So you might try that if you're struggling to get these two markers to blend just like I have been. I'm not willing to give up on them. I love this combination when it works, and so I just keep pushing them and trying to get them to play nice. So I'm going to use the E50 and the E51 to color in the lighter parts, her little hands and the insides of her ears, the middle part of her face, her muzzle there, and also her little belly. I put a shadow on all of that with the E51, and now I'm blending that out with the E50. I am going to leave some white space also on each of those areas, and I will grab my colorless blender to kind of smooth the transition from the E50 into the white. Then I'm going to add in the RV11 and RV13. I'm going to color in her nose, and I also wanted to give her some rosy cheeks. More often I will use the RV11 and the RV10, but because she's a bit of a darker brown bunny, I decided to go a step up and use the RV11 and RV13. So I just kind of worked that until I was happy with it. That will dry back a bit, so it looks a little bit bright now, but it will lighten up. And then I use those same shades to color in the insides of the ears. Even though I had that light brown undertone in there, I just feel like it helps it look a little bit more realistic when I lay the pink over top. And I will grab that E50 and just go back over the ears one more time. And then I'm going to keep the RV13 and add in the RV14 and the RV17 to color in the first section of my rainbow. I wanted to do a rainbow colored umbrella, but instead of using red as my first color on the rainbow spectrum, I decided to go with hot pink instead for something a little bit different. So I started with the RV17. I put my shadows on the right hand side. Since the umbrella is tipped toward the left, I just thought that was the natural place to put that shadow and to have the highlight on the left hand side where the sun would be hitting it the most. For my second section, I'm going to use YR02, YR04, and YR07. And I'm just going to keep it consistent across the umbrella the whole way. So always putting my shadow on the right, mid-tone in the center, and then the highlight on the left. The next one I'm going to use is some yellows, and I chose Y11, Y13, and Y15. So I'm using that Y15 first and doing kind of a little bit of a line down the right hand side. And then I come in with the midtone and fill in almost half of that section. So I have a nice big section of highlight there. I just thought that that would be pretty for this card. Sometimes I like deeper shadows like I did on the bunny because she was under the umbrella where she would be in more shadow. But for the actual umbrella, it's out there in the light. It is going to be a stormy day, but there still would be some light there that would be reflecting on that. So I use YG11, YG13, and YG17 for my greens. And then I'm using B41, B52, and B45 for my blues. I really love these blue tones. It's kind of like a cornflower blue. And it was the exact color of the sky outside my window on the day that I was coloring this. So I kind of felt inspired by that and pulled together that combo. I'm going to be honest, I really struggled with what color to do the underside of the umbrella. I almost went with purple, but I wanted her raincoat to be purple. Then I thought about doing gray, but I thought that would be too dark against the sky. So I ended up just going with the yellow, so there's a little bit of like a sunnier shade underneath there because it kind of reflects on her personality there. Even though the skies are dark, she's smiling. So I used Y000 and Y11. And then for her raincoat, I'm going to use V20, V22, and V25. Adding some shadow on the outside edges and on the bottom of her sleeves. Also a little shadow where her arms are crossed over in front of her, holding on to that umbrella. And also down the center where the flaps would overlap one another. And then I'm going to take my V22 and begin to blend that out. Since the area under her chin would be cast in more shadow, I filled that in completely, but I left a highlight on the tops of her arms and also on her belly. So I filled that in with V20. And there I reached over and paused my audiobook because my youngest son came into my craft room to talk with me. So I always listen to audiobooks when I'm crafting, and I would be curious to know, do you guys listen to music? Do you watch TV? I don't know, I find TV too distracting for me. I just need something that I can listen to but not look at. So audiobooks are perfect, and I just get them from the library and listen to them on my phone, and I love it. So leave me a comment down below and let me know if you listen to anything or watch anything while you're crafting. So I did a second layer on that raincoat because I didn't like the intensity of the saturation. I didn't feel like it met the same level as the coloring that I did on the umbrella. And after the second coat, it still wasn't quite dark enough, so I actually did a third coat, and I liked that much better. So I'm moving on to her boots, and I'm going to give her some black boots or dark gray boots. I used C1, C3, and C5 for those. Just left a little shadow on the toe and also on the top band, and on the one that's kind of raised, I did it a little different. Just to kind of show that movement there. So blend it out with the C3 and then the C1, and then I'm going to use BG10 and BG11 for my puddle and also all of my raindrops. So I started with the BG11, and I'm doing kind of a little outline on the puddle so that the center of it will be the lighter color, so it'll look a little bit shiny there. And then for the raindrops, I'm just doing my shading on the right hand side, just like I did with the umbrella, and then blending out with the BG10 and letting that fade into the white. Then I'm going to take a white Sakura Jelly Roll pen and add some little polka dots to my bunny's rain jacket. I just thought it would be fun to have a little bit of a print on there. Something that is really easy to do and can take your images to the next level. So I just did that real quick, and then I'm going to trim these images out with their matching dies. For my background, I'm going to take a piece of Bristol Smooth Surface cardstock and some tumbled glass Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to blend that on from all four corners. I want to create kind of a halo effect so that the center of my scene is nice and bright white, where that light is kind of diffused and soft, and then the edges are the darker and the sky kind of blends in with the ground, with the sidewalk or whatever. And that, you know, everything is just so washed out that it just kind of fades together. But that light center is going to really pull focus from the viewer towards the images. So then I'm going to take some stormy sky and I'm going to go over the four corners again and just darken those up a bit and kind of create that stormy hue that's going to pull that focus even more. And then once I'm happy with that, I will go back to my tumbled glass and blend over the edge of that and kind of transition that a little bit better into the white. And I'm just holding that paper down in the center since I'm not putting any ink there. Then I don't have to worry about getting my fingers all inky. So once I have that, I'm going to take an acrylic block and I'm going to squirt a little bit of water onto that. And then I'll grab a small paintbrush and flick that off of the block. I find this is the easiest way to get like the smaller size droplets. It just gives you a bit more control. So once I'm done with that, I'm also going to take the tumbled glass and add a little bit of water to that, and then I'm going to do the same thing, and that's just going to add some texture to my scene and also create even more of that rainy day look, because they will resemble raindrops and stuff in the background. So I'm going to do the same with the stormy sky. So I'll have the water, which will kind of lift the color and create some white dots. And then I'll have the two shades of blue there. So once I'm happy with that splatter, I will let this panel dry completely. And then I'll pop it in my MISTI so that I can stamp my sentiment. I'm using the one that says, "When it rains, look for rainbows." I'm stamping that down in VersaFine Onyx Black ink because this ink lays over the Distress Oxides very well. Not all inks will lay well over it, but this one does in particular. So this is what I usually go to when I'm using some Distress Oxides. So I did stamp that down twice to get a really good impression. There you can see that. I love that little tiny font. And then I'm going to pop my card base in my MISTI. I'm using MFT's Snow Cone cardstock, and I'm going to stamp on the inside in Lawn Fawn's Merman ink. And I'm using that bunny again with a couple of the raindrops and the sentiment that says, "Wishing you brighter days." So again, I stamped that down twice to get a nice bold impression. And then I'm going to move on to my pattern paper. I'm using the Sunny Studio Spring Fling 6x6, and I'm just going through until I get to this beautiful rainbow print. I thought that would be the perfect backdrop for this card. And I'm going to use my Lawn Fawn large stitch rectangle stackables to die cut that out. I also use the Lawn Fawn stitch scalloped rectangle frames to die cut both the inner portion that I ink blended on and a white cardstock frame to go around that. So I'm going to turn those face down onto my work surface and use a bit of Scotch tape to tape the frame back into place over that cardstock so that everything is one piece and I can pop that up on my card later on. I'm going to take my pattern paper and glue that to the front of my card base, and that one does cover the front of the card completely but adds that beautiful stitching detail around the outside edge that makes your cards look so polished. Then I added some foam tape to the back of my focal panel, so I'll peel off those release papers, line that up in the center, and then press that down into place. And then I can bring in my images. So the first thing I'm going to add is this little rain puddle, because that needs to be in place before I can adhere my bunny down. So I'm adding that all the way to the bottom of the scene, and then I will add my bunny so that she is standing in that little puddle, kind of splashing and having a wonderful time and just making the best of this rainy day. And so I just added her there over on the right hand side and made sure I had her just where I wanted her. And then I've got all of these little raindrops. So I'm going to add some of the ones that look like they're bouncing over on the right hand side in that little corner, just to fill in that space. And then I'll take the other two that look like they're bouncing and add that on the left hand side. And then for the rest of these little raindrops, I'm just going to sprinkle them here and there. I don't want them to look, you know, too lined up together or something. I want it to be really random, like a rainy day would be. So I'm just going to add them here and there. And I started with the larger ones first and kind of am filling in as I get to the little smaller ones there. I'm using my favorite liquid glue, Tombow Mono Multi. This stuff has been around forever, but it works so great. Gives you that little bit of time before your images are adhered permanently where you can adjust them, and this bottle never clogs, so I just really love it. I was going to put one hanging down from the edge of the umbrella so it looked like it was dripping, but then I needed something to fill in that top left corner. And I didn't see that I had one more of those raindrops in my little dish there. So I will go back and add that in a little bit. But for now, I decided to add some Stardust stickles to all of the water. So I have it in the puddle and also on each of those little raindrops so that they will really catch the light and look, you know, extra shiny and sparkly. And then I also decided to add it to my umbrella. So I put it on the far right of each of those sections of the umbrella. I always like to put the stickles where the darkest shading is because I feel like it stands out the most on there. So I had to tip my card a little bit so I wouldn't drag my sleeve into the stickles that was already on the raindrops. But I just added that little line there that is just going to be a subtle detail. And then I found that other little raindrop in the dish, so I decided to add that over on the right, so it's kind of dripping down as the rain comes down on that umbrella. Of course, that one needed a little of that Stardust stickles as well. So there you can see all of that detail and another peek at the inside. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and more than that, I hope that it encourages you to always try to look on the bright side of things. So if you did like it, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I post new ones every Monday and Friday. If you're interested in any of the products I used, you'll find them listed and linked in the description bar below. And if you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought you might also enjoy. You can click on either one to check them out. I hope you all have an amazing day. Bye-bye.